The man discovered something eerie while using the restroom. Despite the world having already ended, a group of strangers were approaching him. He immediately turned and retreated to his camp. By the 10th year after Doomsday, only a few thousand people remained on the entire Earth. Now, a group wielding knives had appeared, indicating their malevolent intentions. Jake was so frightened that he fell to the ground. Upon closer inspection, he realized that these people were only tens of meters away, but these strangers were closing in on the camp rapidly. The father had to kick away a board, leading his family quickly out the back door. In a post-apocalyptic world with scarce resources, the consequences of being caught were dire. Seeing that running directly was not a viable option, the father had no choice but to open the nearby toilet lid. To protect his son and daughter-in-law, he pushed them both down into it. Turning around, he prepared to face these desperate outlaws in the post-apocalyptic world personally. However, within seconds, he was struck down by a direct blow. Meanwhile, the husband and wife could only shiver in fear, helplessly witnessing the father being killed on the spot. But in order to survive, they had to stifle their cries. The group had entered their camp, discovering the luggage that Jake had accidentally lost, containing precious medicine. In a world where most people were already infected, only this medicine could barely sustain them. Now that the medicine had been taken by these people, what would happen to the infected wife? They watched as the father was carried on a stick, but as the group passed by the toilet, the leader seemed to notice something amiss. Underneath a scattered pile of sticks, something was evidently off. Jake quickly covered his wife's mouth, and when the leader crouched down to lift the toilet for inspection, the leader felt particularly curious. He leaned in and took a deep sniff, the foul odor making him nauseous. Only after the strangers had completely departed did Jake emerge from the toilet. Finding the campsite now in disarray, all supplies looted, but how to survive in this post-apocalyptic world? Moreover, his wife was severely infected, lying weak and helpless in bed. Looking at the worsening wound, Jake wanted to check the box of pills by the bed, but upon picking it up, he found it completely empty. Seeing his wife writhing in unbearable pain, Jake was momentarily seized by an impulsive thought and picked up a pillow. But after all, this was his once beloved wife, and Jake ultimately couldn't bring himself to do it. What would be the next step to survive? In order to find the pills to save his wife, Jake left the remaining water for her, then emerged, concealing this campsite. He then embarked on a journey to find those strangers. Following the bloodstains left by his father, Jake searched the wilderness. However, with the temperature already at -20 degrees, he was only wearing a short-sleeved shirt and shorts. Before long, Jake collapsed on the ground. His consciousness struggled amidst the haze, with pain and cold enveloping him. But in a moment of delirium, he seemed to notice a young boy passing by in the distance. Jake didn't miss the opportunity and silently followed the boy from behind, only revealing himself when the boy reached his home. As soon as the boy returned, he quickly closed the gate, facing Jake closing in behind him. The boy hurriedly hid beside his grandfather. In an instant, he kicked open the iron gate. However, he didn't harm the two. Instead, he took the grandfather's clothes, and then continued on his journey to find the strangers. Unaware of what lay ahead, Jake pressed on through the winter forest. As bloodstains still marked the ground, Jake finally made a new discovery, but it brought him only sorrow. Enduring his pain, he buried his father in the earth. He had to quickly locate those people to get the medicine, or his wife at home would soon be in mortal peril. With no more bloodstains to guide him, Jake climbed a tall tree to continue tracking the stranger's trail. Soon, he noticed smoke ahead. But at that moment of distraction, Jake accidentally fell from the tree. Before he could react, something even more terrifying happened. The distant sounds of a pack of wolves howling. Jake could only think of a last resort. The animals feared fire. All he needed to do was light the campfire left by the strangers. As the sun set, Jake's fire was ablaze, and he was stoking it fiercely. Before long, the wild dogs swarmed. In the darkness, Jake wielded his torch, and it seemed to be effective, as the dogs hesitated to advance further, ultimately allowing him to escape unscathed. The next day, as the lights went out, Jake slowly awakened from his slumber. Fortunately, today he made a discovery. He continued his journey along a small river in the forest. A trail of blood floating in the river led him to a female hunter, spotted by Jake not far away. However, he dared not act recklessly yet, as finding their camp was his primary objective. Following the female hunter's trail, Jake quickly found the camp. Surely, the medicine must be hidden there. Seeing only the female hunter in the camp, he contemplated rushing in directly. But these people were extremely cautious, even setting up bells as alarms, which made Jake even more alert. After a thorough search, however, it seemed the medicine was not in the bag taken earlier. He had no choice but to rummage through everything. Unbeknownst to him, the female hunter spotted him, and he swiftly knocked her to the ground. Next to the camp, there was a camper van, where Jake immediately began searching. However, as he rummaged around, the group of strangers had already returned. Jake hurriedly wiped away the bloodstains, hiding the traces of the recent scuffle, dragging the female hunter aside and concealing her. Unbeknownst to Jake, he was facing formidable opponents. Upon their return to the camp, the group captured the boy they had taken earlier, and the leader, being very cautious, noticed that the mirror had been moved. He ordered his men to bind the boy, and went to the river to search for the female hunter. Jake realized that hiding was not a sustainable solution. Seeing the group mobilizing, Jake quickly covered the female hunter with leaves, and then, while they searched the forest, stealthily made his way back to the camp. However, there was still an infected person guarding the camp. Jake waited until the guard returned to the camper van before emerging. Jake decided to rescue the boy first. The boy, thinking Jake intended to harm him, shouted loudly outside, until the infected person inside couldn't bear it anymore, and decided to come out to investigate. Seeing this, the infected person quickly followed suit. Meanwhile, Jake hurried to the camp and found a locked box. Surely, the medicine must be inside, but no matter how hard he kicked, it wouldn't budge. At this moment, the leader had returned. Jake could only temporarily hide under the camper van. Upon their return, they found the incapacitated female hunter. Jake stayed put under the vehicle, not daring to move a muscle. It wasn't until the early morning of the next day that Jake, while everyone was still asleep, quietly made his way into the camper van. This time, he successfully found the key to the box around the leader's neck. Sure enough, when he opened the box, all the medicine was hidden inside. Jake quickly pocketed the medicine, and then went to lock the camper van before he could leave with peace of mind. However, perhaps due to Jake's excessive joy, he accidentally bumped into a bell while fleeing. The ringing woke the slumbering leader, who kicked the door open. Jake ran desperately through the forest, with the leader and his men in hot pursuit. They were closing in on Jake quickly, but he managed to shake them off soon due to his knowledge of the terrain. Running all the way, he arrived where the boy and the grandfather were. Initially intending to seek refuge, he was greeted by the wild dog footprints upon entering. Inside, the scene was already gruesome, nearly causing Jake to faint, with no will to resist the pursuit of the strangers behind him. When he woke from his daze once more, he found himself bound on the ground. A thick smoke rose nearby, signaling his imminent demise. But in his despair, he noticed a whistle lying nearby. Seizing the opportunity, as everyone was occupied with the fire, Jake quickly blew the whistle. The sound echoed through the forest, sure to attract the ferocious wild dogs. Upon hearing this, the leader swiftly kicked Jake aside, but now it was already too late. As the surrounding area echoed with the sounds of numerous wild dogs, the dogs swiftly responded to the calls, causing the strangers to scatter and flee into the forest. Taking advantage of this opportune moment, Jake quickly freed himself from his bindings, then hid under a nearby large tree, successfully evading the pursuit of the wild dogs. He knew that the group had now dispersed. Disguising himself with clothing near the tree, he took them by surprise from above, utilizing his astounding strength to swiftly defeat two of the adversaries. Finally, he set his sights on the leader, but the leader proved to be a formidable opponent. Armed with a stolen bow and arrow, Jake shot the leader in the thigh. However, as he aimed for a fatal blow, he accidentally snapped the bowstring. At that moment, both resorted to a knife duel. Fortunately, the sudden sound of the wild dogs interrupted the confrontation. Jake took the opportunity to escape while the leader was distracted, forced to temporarily retreat and evade each other amidst the chaos. After a while, Jake trekked through the wilderness and stumbled upon a remote cottage. He hoped to find some food there. However, upon closer inspection, he discovered that the homeowner had already drawn their last breath. Fortunately, Jake made a discovery. He found a weapon on the homeowner's body. Upon entering the cottage and examining it carefully, he found an abundance of tools for daily living, along with a weapon on the table. Nevertheless, danger continued to loom. Just as he was packing some food, a noise suddenly came from behind him. It was the leader who had caught up with him. Jake raised the weapon directly at the leader, but to his dismay, it was out of ammunition, but they quickly plunged into the final showdown. Meanwhile, in the camp, the wife was awakened from her slumber by the howls of the wild dogs. In a panic, she had to brace herself against the infected body and prepare to assess the situation. Indeed, she saw a large pack of wild dogs running towards her, realizing the imminent danger she was in. On the other side, Jake was still locked in a fierce battle with the leader. Just as the leader had Jake by the throat, he summoned all his strength and managed to kick the leader away, only then remembering about the weapon. In this manner, Jake executed his final counterattack, but what he didn't know was the purpose behind all of this. Perhaps it was indeed for the sake of his beloved wife. But how could he know her current status? Relying on his last ounce of strength, Jake ran wildly all the way, until he finally reached his camp. However, the gate was wide open, and there was no trace of his wife inside. Could it be that all his efforts had been in vain? He couldn't believe it, sitting slumped on the ground, unable to move. And at the end of the film, the director presented a mysterious conclusion.